Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest John Davis, the corporate action hero.
Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
So today in this episode, we're very pleased to have John Davis with us, and he is the corporate action hero. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I am so very excited to talk with you guys today. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So can you tell us how you got the corporate action hero title?
Okay. Well, before we get into that, let me just say there's a difference between an action hero and a superhero. The main difference is that action heroes are ordinary individuals who create extraordinary results, and superheroes are people who wear their underwear on the outside of their pants and have superpowers and are usually irradiated by some sort of goo. And I know you can't tell right now, but my underwear are under my pants right now. So there you go.
TMI.
What'd you say?
As a TMI.
Well, that's one of the benefits of COVID, isn't it? We all get to sit around in our underwear and do this kind of thing.
Well, that's true.
I'm known as the corporate action hero because I had a career as a fight director, a stunt man, a fight choreographer. I did a lot of amazing sword fights. I'm an expert in sword play, bullwhips, nunchucks, martial arts, gun spinning, all that kind of crazy thing. And over the course of my years, I decided that I wanted to inspire people. And I found that I did a comedy show called Hack and Slash that went all over the world, including the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan on 6 USO tours.
Wow.
And I discovered that I was enjoying the time after the show talking to my audience more than I was enjoying the time on stage, because after the show, I was helping them reach their goals in life, and I was helping them break past their bad relationships and all kinds of other things. And so I said, how do I find a career where I get to not only, help people, but, play with whips and nunchucks and cool stuff like that. And so I created something called the Corporate Action Hero. And what I am now is I'm a keynote speaker, motivational, inspirational speaker. I go into corporations and I help them take their people from what I used to call Groundhog's Day, the repeating day, and turn them into people who are achieving more in their present moment just so they can reach peak performances. That's the general long elevator pitch.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the fact that you enjoyed more the after than the performance. And I saw an interview with Roy Clark, the country,
Yeah,
and up in Branson, and he said, and because people always talked about him after the show, he would stay as long as people wanted to stay to talk to him, and he said he really got more out of talking to those people than he did doing his performance. He said, I played music and sang for years. He said, but to get to actually talk to people, and and he said, the fact that they want to take a picture with me or they want my autograph, he says, it's amazing to me,
Well, the interconnection that we have with each other is probably the most wonderful thing we can do in the world, is to be, connect with each other. We're all in this earth thing together, right? Right. We're all here to help each other out in the end. And so, if you can connect with somebody, that's what's one of the biggest detractors. One of the biggest problems we've had with COVID is the fact that we're so separate. We're told to stay apart. And so I love the idea of, like, I put out a thing the other day. I said, separate does not mean alone. Reach out to somebody, and talk to somebody. We can be virtual. Like my family, as I said, before the interview, I have a very large family. I have 6 brothers and sisters, good Catholic family. Thank you very much. We have made sure that we connect more now than we did before because of Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
We actually talk more now than we ever did. Yeah, and it's amazing. We live all over the country, but now it's like we're right next door.
Yeah. You don't have to pack up and drive somewhere and all that stuff. It's just, hey, it's 15 or 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're on there.
Right.
Everybody, yeah. It's almost
Exactly.
like
I actually
your living room together, right?
Right. I connected with a friend of mine who he was my best friend in kindergarten, and we've stayed friends our entire life, but we haven't really we talk once or twice a year. We talk, every couple of days now, because the COVID has said, okay, you don't have to worry about distance anymore. You can just hop on the internet and talk to each other. So we get on Zoom and make jokes and have a good time.
You know, one of the cause good things about Facebook, I mean, there's good and bad. One of the good things about Facebook is it brought people together. Because I mean, I've in a couple of groups that were high school groups. You know, we went to high school together. Now we meet once a month, you know, and get together and reconnect, you know, and otherwise we would never ever saw those people again.
I got to tell you, when I was in high school, I was the introverted fat kid, and I didn't have a great time in high school. But I love Facebook now for the fact that I go back and I'm like an action hero who's been all over the world and done crazy things, worked with Brad Pitt and David Duchovny and all those big stars. And those guys are still the janitor at that high school.
Yeah.
You know, the quarterback is still got the mullet, you know.
I was gonna say the only thing about Zoom though is if you're, you know, you're having a dinner party, you have to cook. No one's cooking for you. So,
Right. It's true. Right. It's absolutely true.
I had a question too. I mean, with all this fighting, where did that stem from? I mean, your interest in doing what you're doing.
You know, it's when I was a young man, and even before manhood, but in my childhood, I always was the kid who had the stick in his hand like it was a sword, and I always played army. And we had behind our house we had thousands of acres of woods, and my friends would come over. We knew every inch of those woods, and we would go out there, we'd play forever. My father was a plumber, and he would bring home like parts that he took off of a job site because he was going to sell the scrap copper or something. I can't tell you how many of those pieces and parts got lost in those woods. Right? Because that one looked like a gun, so that one went out in the woods. So that was my main interest. And then what happened was I ended up getting drugged to a Renaissance festival. And I know in Texas, you know what that is.
Oh yeah.
And Canada, I actually performed at one in Milton, Canada. Yeah, back in the day, right? So, pardon?
That's where I'm living.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
So Milton, that you used to have a Renaissance festival right in that area.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I performed it one year, but I got drugged to a Renaissance festival, and I met these two guys who were two of the top fight directors in the world, and they said, John, you have natural talent as not only an actor but a combatant, and we want to give you all your training for free. And so I got trained by two of the best fight directors in the world, and then so I have this new goal, and the goal was that I was going to be a stunt man and a fight director, and I was going to do all these amazing, exciting things. And then at 22 years old, I was helping a friend of mine unload his van. He was a professional potter. He makes beautiful pottery. And he said, can you come over and help me? And of course, at this point, you know, being a sword fighting guy, I was buff and strong and looking good, you know, had long Fabio hair, I had the whole bit going on. And unlike what I have now, right? This isn't a bald head. This is a solar panel for a love machine. Anyway, so I ended up climbing up in that van, and I grabbed a box of clay. And when I turned it was an 80-pound box of clay, very heavy box of clay. And I turned to take that clay out of the van, and my upper body separated from my lower body, and I collapsed and was paralyzed. And they rushed me to the hospital. The doctor told me flat out, John, you have a condition known as spina bifida occulta, which means 3 of my vertebrae never formed properly at birth. And then he told me flat out, you will never be a stuntman. You'll never be a fight director. You'll never have a physical career. Give up. And while I was in the hospital, somebody gave me a book called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. And I started looking at his philosophy for mental flexibility. And I willed myself out of that bed and went on to do over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows all over the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
Different story. You don't expect that story.
No.
No, you're starting to, we're all waiting for the fact, and I did 4,000 stunts after that, but I like the comedy part of it. You know, you made something else out of it, which is absolutely wonderful.
Well, you know, I discovered several things. I discovered that you had to make sure that you didn't look at your future as a negative. You know, I couldn't look at this future and say, I can't do this. I've got to stay right here present. I got to stay real positive about what I'm trying to do. And so what I started doing was I just started stacking successful present moments. Yeah, I'm just going to do these small little successful present moments, because most people think here's the biggest struggle that I see with people who are trying to overcome some sort of adversity. They look at the goal that they've set for themselves, and they say, I have to get to it. But that's not the way the brain works. See, because your conscious mind is in this present moment. It's the only moment you have. You can't go to the store next Thursday right now, and you can't go to the store last Thursday right now. You can only go to the store right now, right? So the thing that's up there in the future, you're not going to get to it. It's coming to you, depending on what you do in your present moment. So if you can stack these present moments in alignment with what you want, that's going to come and surround your experience.
I love that.
So that's what I talk about when I go speaking to corporations.
So what you talk about your fighting stuff, you know, which one have you done that you really liked the best? What was the one that's the most meaningful to you?
Meaning fight stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, working with actors and doing this choreography of,
You know, I've worked with stars, but I have to say the most impactful thing fight wise I ever did. I was involved with an organization called they were called Artworks before, but now they're called Young Audiences or the Arts Inspired Learning or something like that. But they had a program called our Artworks, where they had brought in professionals from all different sorts of art, like performance arts and medium and painting, and I was brought in as a stage combat instructor for inner city kids. And I came in and I had some of the most profound experiences with those kids. I had one kid who came in, and one of the things, you know, as a fight choreographer, your job is to tell the story of the fight. And that as a choreographer, your fight story starts long before they start throwing blows. It's how do you get into a fight? So I said to this kid one day, I said, so how do fights start? I had all my kids there. And this one kid says, I know how fights start. And I said, really, show me how. Now he was my troublemaking kid. He was like the inner city tough kid, and he was causing problems in the class as well. He said, I know how fights start. I said, really, show me. So he grabs his buddy, he drags him up in front of him, and they just start to walk past each other. And he takes his shoulder and he slams it into the chest of the other kid. I'm like, so that's how fights start? You just start hitting without any reason, right? And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, where you come from, if you're not tough, you're a victim, aren't you? Mm-hmm. And the kid's face fell flat, and a little tear came to his eye. He says, yeah. I said, that must be hard. He says, it's real hard. And I said, you know, we're here at this place. You're completely safe here. No one's going to treat you as a victim here. No one's going to treat you as anything less than another actor who's doing their best. So you be safe here, and we'll create things. By the end of that program, that kid wanted to be an actor full time. And those kind of experience. And I heard story. I would sit those kids down and I would say things like, I don't get to tell this story very often, so this is a great podcast to be on. I would say, tell us some of your most traumatic events. And oh my God, the stories I heard from some of those kids. I had one kid who watched his mother get shot by his father and then got pistol whipped by his father unconscious. You know, this is what the inner city was going through. And I was like, oh my God, these poor kids. And then I had one young lady who was not from the inner city, and she started crying. And I said, what's going on? She says, I never realized how good I really had it. You know, so there's this variation that was there that now suddenly from the upper class over here is now talking to a kid whose father is, you know, shot his mother. And I saw these barriers being breached. And to me, bar anything, I don't care who the star I worked with is, that was the most impactful thing I've ever done with fight choreography in my life, and will probably always be.
Well, I mean, you changed some people's lives.
That's the goal.
Really, you sent them off in a whole different direction of what they thought they had to go.
And that is my hope. That's one of the reasons why when I started stepping off stage and talking to people, that's why that became so important to me, because I wanted to take people out of their stories of being a victim and into their stories of empowerment and going somewhere else. That to me, that's the most noble mission I can do in life is to put somebody on a path away from their own negativity and victimhood and self-defeating language and onto a path of being an action hero. I call it being an action hero rather than a reaction zero.
There you go. There you go. That's perfect.
It
But
is.
I mean, that one conversation.
Yep.
I mean, just you think about that. You had one conversation with someone and you were able to really change the direction of their life.
And that conversation started with meeting him where he was, letting him know that I understood what he was going through. And that's the part that most people miss in those kind of conversations is they aren't looking at the conversation from an empathetic point of view. You've got to look at that person and realize it's their life they're living, not yours. And you have to, step out of your way.
It's interesting too, because you're talking about victimization. I refuse to be a victim. The other thing too, I refuse is to ever feel poor. Even when I was, counting pennies and rolling them up to, buy bread at certain points in my life, I never felt poor.
Right.
And I think it's easy for people to put themselves in that mindset because as a victim, you get the pity. But the thing is if you turn it around as somebody who's been victorious, you get that thing, wow, you are my role model. I prefer to be a role model than get pity as an attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. The other thing is, a lot of people, when they get into that kind of state of being poor, will start using affirmations. And I don't believe in affirmations. And I'll tell you why I don't believe in affirmations. Because the word affirm means that I'm shoring something up that's not solid. I believe in declarations. You just say it and do it. Right. As Yoda would say, do or do not, there is no try. Right. you want to make sure that you are declaring what you're doing and then taking the action, because the way you get things done in your present moment is your thoughts, words, and deeds. When I'm coaching someone and trying to get them to go to that next level, the first thing I do is I take words out of their vocabulary. And the words I usually start with are wanting, needing, hoping, and trying, because none of them are active present moment words. And if they can switch that to creating, enjoying, building, living, changing it to words that are actually this moment doing something, then everything in their life changes. Everything in their life changes.
It's interesting you mentioned words, because we've had a guest here before, and that's what same thing, words. And we were going through some stuff, and it's amazing when he explains to you, well, if you say but, you think it means this, but it's totally opposite. And just different words you use and how they impact what happens to you.
Well, but means you don't have faith in what you're saying. It means you're not putting faith in it. I have a program called the 5 F's, and it's how to hack the mind for achievement. And basically the first one is fearlessness. You set your fears aside. The second one is focus. You focus on a positive goal, not a negative one. So fearlessly focused. The third one's faith, belief, confidence. You have to believe you're going to get it. And if you don't believe you're going to get it, then you're not going to get it, because that's the way the world works. Because think about a couple of things. Number one, I'm a student of all kinds of spirituality, but the beginning of the book of Genesis, the first line is, in the beginning is the word, right? And your word, the words you're using, goes out to the source, and the source creates it around you. So, in the beginning is the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So whatever you put out with your word is getting created. And so you have to realize that the other thing is, if I can, do you mind if I go a little bit spiritual?
No.
Okay. So think about this. Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted, right? But Moses in the Old Testament said that God's name, after talking to the burning bush, was I am. So if you say I am trying, and I am wanting, and I am needing, you're asking God for a good want, need, and try. Right. And those suck. But I am creating, I am enjoying. You're actually asking, and God, of course, God loves you so much that God's going to give you exactly what you asked for, because that's what was promised. I will give you whatever you ask in my name. So you ask for negative things, you're going to get negative stuff. You ask for positive stuff, you're going to get positive stuff. But you ask if for present moment, active, enjoying, positive, loving stuff, you're going to have a great life.
So I'm going to go back a little bit to when you were talking to these kids and stuff. Have any of them came back to you later?
All the time.
Oh, I want to thank you for such and such, and to then tell you what happened to their life?
All the time. I had one who called. I was in the middle of a podcast last week, and I stopped the podcast because one was calling me out of the blue. I had one who reached out to me on LinkedIn because now he was a successful executive, and he wanted to just say thank you. You put me on a new path. I had the lady who contacted me last week. She was a very devout Christian, was having a crisis of faith, and felt safe to talk about it with me. And so it was one of those situations where I don't consider myself a Christian, but I consider myself a spiritual person, spirituality without the religion. And she was able to come to me and talk to me about her Christian faith. And because I knew a lot about it, I was able to talk from her perspective. Like I said, you have to talk to people empathetically. So I worked from her where she was coming from. And she still contacts me and sends me messages. And I hear, and in fact, yesterday, a guy that I knew, one of the kids that I knew was a Hispanic kid. He sent me a message, just to check in with me to make sure I was okay, which to me says a whole bunch,
Oh yeah. That's tons.
Yeah.
It's interesting how I joined, years ago I moved away. I lived in London, Ontario, and then now we're on Facebook, and they come up with the teachers' names. And it's funny because there's certain teachers that do have an impact on you. And all the people will write the same ones, and there's tons of them that are never named, but there are the specific ones that are.
Right.
And it's lovely. And I mean, we were like, I don't know, 11 to 17, and now here we are in the 50s, and we're looking for our teachers.
Well,
exactly point.
Right. What I find interesting on Facebook is all my favorite teachers are still in contact with me from high school, are still in contact with me. I'm 56 years old. They're still in contact with me on Facebook. They're like, in fact, one of them about 3-4 months ago, he sent me a picture that I drew of him when I was in high school.
Oh.
And he still has it in his collection. And I was like, it blew me away that he had this picture after all these years. I had I'm also a painter. I do a lot of painting as well. And my art teacher, still to this day, sends messages to me. What are you working on? Send me a new painting. And I send him pictures of the paintings that I'm working on. And he's still right there. All the ones who are most impactful are usually the ones who will stay impactful, who will stay connected. And to me, that's important. That's one of the reasons I felt so honored that they felt that they could reach out to me from those kids, because it means I really did have impact. And now, like for the last one to say, I just want to check on you to see how you're doing. That shows me that the impact went further. It really grew a good person. And I think that all of us, if we're working with kids, especially, it's kind of our job to build good people. Right?
Well, it's always makes you feel good when you're just going through your daily life doing what you do, right?
Right.
And then some kid that you may have talked to back in the day, whatever, and they come up, you see them as an adult, they bump into you and they go, "Oh my gosh, I want to thank you because if it wasn't for you, something you told me about this or something you did, or you have no idea you had any impact on them at all. I mean, because you were just there doing whatever, and then you find out, oh wow, man, that's pretty humbling."
And it's happened to me several times. I have one young lady who came to me, and she said, "You don't know, but when you were teaching me, I was going through some very abusive things with my family, and you were the safe adult. You were the one who brought me to a place where I could be myself, and I knew that I was okay. And my father and my mother weren't giving me that, but you meant that much to me." And those moments are, as I said, I don't care how much money you ever make in life, those moments are priceless. Yeah. Because that means you really affected the world in a positive way.
I'm just glad you said that, because I was going to ask you, I'm sure you've had a very good, financially successful career, but that being said, when these people come back to you and they find out, that you helped them, you were there for them, that purpose you served is probably more important to you than all the money you made.
Absolutely. You can't take the money with you, but you can take the good feelings with you, I think. I don't think it ends when we die. I think we keep going. So I think that I like to put it this way. I'm going to leave here with more karma points than anybody else. I play the game aggressively.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, you can have money, but really, and it's no fun to have money if you're not feeling fulfilled at the same time.
And money is an interesting animal because a lot of people think money is success, but money's not success. Success really is freedom. People want to be able to not have to worry about this or worry about that, and live where they want to live. They want to be free to do the things they want to do without worry. That's what success is. Money is a means to get there, of course, but if I know people who I think are probably more successful than me, who don't have two dimes to rub together, because they're joyful, they're happy, and they're free. And to me, if you can live that and be a good person who affects the world in a positive way, the material things really don't matter. It really don't matter to me. It's I live in a very nice house, and I live with a great green screen behind me here, right? Right. But the thing is, living in that house with this nice studio in my house and all this stuff, I could easily go live in a trailer somewhere and be just fine doing that, because it's not about the house. The reason I have the house is because I have a son. And for me, my goal in life is to create a world that my son can live the life that I want him to live in. That's why I vote the way I vote. We're not going to talk politics. We'll stop that now.
Thank you.
I refuse. But I vote. I look at the candidates and I say, who would give my son the life that I would want him to lead, and that's the way I vote. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Protestant. I don't care, whatever. I'm gonna vote for that sort of experience. And so for me, I live in this house so that my son can have the things that he doesn't have to have worry and have the freedom that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think the older we get, we tend to material things mean less and less.
It's so true. And over the past month, I have been purging my house. I'm like, I have this dream of living in a Japanese house that has nothing in it, right? Except for a mat to sleep on. And I'm looking at everything I have. And I have a wall over here to my left. You can't see it, but it's filled with all these plaques from all these military units that I did, I went and performed for. And the wall looks so cluttered. I appreciate the plaques. Don't get me wrong. I love them. They're something I'm very proud of. But boy, the whole idea of having clutter in your life, to me, I'm like, I just want to clear it all out and get it gone.
Yeah.
Best thing to do is do that now before your son moves out and you start ditching all the stuff on him. And he can't say no because he feels bad about saying no. So then he doesn't know what to do with it.
Well, my mom passed away a couple years ago, and all of my brothers and sisters went to Florida, and they literally were walking through the house with a notepad, who wants what, and they're writing things down. And I was like, I don't want anything, because I don't want to bring it into my house. Right. And then there was this one picture on the wall that nobody wanted. And I kept looking at the picture. I said, I want it. I'll take it. So I took the one picture, and it's an old tintype photograph of our great grandfather. Right. Right. And they didn't know who he was. I was the only one who knew who he was. So I was like, so to me, that was the one thing I got out of the house, and I hang it on the wall. I'm very proud of it, but they divvied up the furniture, they divvied up the clothing, they divvied up the tools. And I was like, I don't want any of it. I just don't want it. And it's not because I didn't love my mom or my dad. It was just because of the fact that that was their stuff, not mine, and
you can't take it with you, just like they couldn't take it with you.
Right.
But what you can take with you is their love and who they're for. So you're absolutely right. My mother seems to think, if she gives me, and Mom, if you're listening to this, I love you. But she'll give.
I love you too, Mom. Really.
She'll give us stuff, and now she's getting better. She goes, if you get rid of it, I just don't want to know.
Right.
But because she holds a lot of sentimental value to things.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to get rid of, I had to go from 2,400 square feet down to like 500 square feet when I lost everything. And I lived in a barn, and I loved it too, by the way.
Yeah.
But and it was a little bit difficult, but once you do it, it becomes easier.
And
But yeah,
when you move into something small like that, you really discover what's really important. I lived when I started doing my work, I lived for many years in a 24-foot Airstream travel trailer. And you want to talk about having to pare stuff down, right? You fit that into 24 feet, you're doing something, buddy. And, I discovered what was important to me. I discovered the things that meant the most. Right now, my biggest issue that I have is that I'm a tool hound. I collect every damn tool there is. And my garage has got like racks of tools. And I'm like, and I don't get me wrong, I go down and I use them occasionally, right? But I have them, I have every one I need ever. And now I'm at a point now, like, I think I should just start paring those down too, and just keep the bare essentials. Cause one of the things I also did as a fight director, you're constantly in need of weapons. And so I actually became a sword maker, and I made swords for Cirque du Soleil and several places like that. But, so I had all the setup to make swords, and I had all that equipment. I don't do that anymore. I go in and I speak to corporations, and I don't have to wear tights anymore, which is good for everybody.
that was one of your podcasts where you were talking to the gentleman. Goes, yeah, when we first met, we were both wearing tights.
We were both wearing tights. Right, exactly right. And we were too. And that's the funniest part about it. We both had long hair and tights. And now he still has his hair. I don't have my hair anymore, but neither one of us should ever be in tights again.
You talk about things that belong to people. My brother had this big old clunky clock. I mean, and every time I'd go over to his house, I'd always comment on it, and stuff. And it was kind of our joke, with each other. And when he passed away, that's the one thing that he had that I got. And every time I see it, it makes me think of him. I smile.
Right.
About it, going back and forth about his clocks, But so yeah.
Well, it's funny. When my father passed away, which was several years before my mother, my mom said, "Here, I got some things to give away," and she gave me a bench grinder, which was a nice tool, and a brand new pair of underwear. And I'm like, I don't want to be in Dad's underwear, right? And then I carried that grinder from Florida all the way back up here, and I mounted it to my bench, and I turned it on, and the motor burned out in smoke. So I was like,
taking the underwear.
I got rid of that underwear quick, baby. I gave that away to charity because I'm a good person.
Too bad.
Oh my gosh. So, John, how is a good way for our listeners to reach out to you?
Is this one of these?
Yep.
So what I want to say, corporateactionhero.com. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. And what I would like to do for your audience today, though, is I talked about that 5 F's briefly before. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you guys a free gift. And when I say free, I mean free. I mean, I'm not even going to ask you for an email address or anything. We're just going to give you a link. You can go there and download it. What it is, it's how to go through your own 5F process to achieve what you want more in life. And so I'll make sure you guys get that link. And but Corporate Action Hero, you go there. You're also going to find my LinkedIn, my Facebook is all listed right there. So you can find me through that.
Cool. Great.
So if they go on, sorry, Roy, if they go on your website, will they find that free?
No, you have to use the link. It's a hidden page just for your special people.
Okay.
So if you need to find it, I can tell you how to find it for your show notes afterwards. So you don't have to put it in the video.
Yes, right. People, make sure that you read the show notes or else you're not getting free gift.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Read the show notes.
Hint.
All right.
Oh man, John, it's been fun. It's been great.
I hope you had a good time. I had a really good time too. This was nice. I get to talk about some things I didn't normally get to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to have you back at some point.
I would love to come back. This was too much fun. Just make sure we know it's a good coffee time, because I killed this one during the
interview. Perfect. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And again, everybody, it's John Davis, and you can find him at the corporateactionhero.com. Thanks again for being with us.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.